Hello. Hello everybody, Jared Bartel here and today. And as promised from yesterday, today I'm gonna go over another, how do you say, doing another live video today. And so for tomorrow's the Iowa caucuses, and today I'm gonna go over this article here. 125 plus reasons you should not vote for Joe Biden by Wes and David Pangeo. I'm not gonna read this because I don't want to lose. I'm not gonna read the whole thing because I don't want to lose my voice. So I'm gonna let this read out loud for you. So enjoy. Oh, and one more thing: if you hear noise in the background from my microphone, don't mind that. I'm doing some stuff. I'll be doing some stuff while this is going on.
Upgrade. 125 plus reasons you should not vote for Joe Biden. Weston David Pagano. Following. January 28, 12 minutes read. USA Today. Despite being propped up by the Democratic establishment, dirty money, and association with Barack Obama, Joe Biden's grip on the presidential nomination is finally slipping. Quite simply, a Biden nomination would spell disaster. His electability is a myth, and even if he could beat Donald Trump, Biden would offer no substantial departure from the grim status quo that is rapidly destroying both our nation and the planet. In fact, over the past 50 years, he has been a key architect of the dreadful governance that got us here. If we are to have any hope of progress, we must do all that we can to ensure Biden does not become the Democratic nominee. Here are over 125 reasons, all linked to sources, that you can send to the boomers in your life to show them why. This will be updated throughout the remainder of the primary. Table of contents. Healthcare, Social Security, etc. Race, immigration, foreign policy, criminal justice and drugs, LGBTQ and women's issues, economy, class and wealth, climate crisis, campaigning and electability, corruption, education, labor, trade, and business. Other. Healthcare, Social Security, etc. Keeps trying over and over and over to cut Social Security and Medicare, raise the retirement age, and gut welfare, all while lying about it and absurdly claiming the video evidence of this is doctored. Opposes Medicare for all while he and his campaign lie about it, what it would entail. Originally claimed he doesn't have time to propose his own health care plan, then
Let's see that video.
How can I deliver superior long-term results? It begins with a distinctive approach to managing money that for over 85 years has focused on keeping confidence up when markets are down. An approach where portfolio managers work well independently and even better together, who don't just invest, but are personally invested. Can I find a proven approach designed to deliver the results I need? With Capital Group, I can.
And Bernie Sanders was in New Hampshire, where he said he's not bad-mouthing other candidates.
I think the best thing for all Democratic candidates, and what we're going to do in our campaign, is you heard me tonight. You didn't hear me say a word about any of the other candidates. We are going to focus on the issues of the working families of America and bring them together.
Not going to mention their names, just mention their policies.
Right.
Here's NBC campaign embed Gary Grumbach, who's joining us right now from Manchester, New Hampshire, and today covering the Sanders campaign specifically. Of course, we just heard from Senator Sanders, and he was saying that he was steering clear of talking about other Democrats. But it does look like he's already in another fight, this time with Joe Biden. What's happening here?
That's right. So the Sanders campaign has been telegraphing this a little bit for weeks now. They've really worried about how they're going to do with older Americans, and they want to have policy distinctions with some other candidates. Now, Social Security is an opportunity to have that. Social Security matters to older Americans. It's a policy distinction that they can make here. So a voter yesterday in Iowa asked Vice President Joe Biden about a policy distinction and phone calls she was getting, saying Joe Biden's record on Social Security is a little bit sketchy. And so we have a full screen here from PolitiFact to kind of explain the situation that's going on. Biden responded by calling the video released online by the Sanders campaign senior advisors doctored. That's a strong word. Now, what happened was it was a speech by Biden at Brookings years ago where he was discussing tax cuts, creating more debt, and said Paul Ryan was correct when he went after Social Security and Medicare. The Sanders senior advisors now didn't include the full context of what Biden was actually saying when posting it. So there's a little bit of a back and forth there. Of course, this is an argument that the Sanders campaign wants to have. But now I want to be clear here. Senator Bernie Sanders himself, I was at 3 events with him yesterday. He didn't say a word about Social Security. So this does seem to be an argument that's being had between Sanders senior advisors, like the speechwriter David Sirota and the national press secretary for the Sanders campaign, and Joe Biden himself.
What he does seem to be saying and talking about specifically when it comes to targeting Biden as well is spending cuts, playing a video from the 90s, from 1995 of Joe Biden on the floor of the Senate. They're talking about those spending cuts. Take a listen first.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time.
All right. He's really coming after him now. Gary, what does the Biden camp do at this point?
He is. So, Vice President Joe Biden has been in this game for decades. For supporters, clearly, that's good news. It means that he has been here for decades. It means he has the experience. It's also bad news because he's been in this game for decades and he has the experience and has the record to show for it. Yes, he has supported some freezes and has supported some proposals that have been a little iffy when it comes to Social Security. But right now, it's something that everyone wants to sort of move on from this.
Okay. Well, we will move on for now. We'll be checking in with you again, Gary Grumbach there. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay, now back to this.
Originally claimed he doesn't have time to propose his own health care plan, then proposed one that would kill 125,000 Americans and leave over 10 million uninsured, which he's lied about, in a rollout sponsored by Big Pharma. His health plan lets his corporate donors cancel your coverage, change your plan, and block you from using your preferred doctor. Wants to bring back penalizing those who can't afford to pay for private insurance. Continues to praise Big Pharma to his ultra-wealthy donors, but is the only candidate to refuse to meet with disabled healthcare activist Adi Barkan. Accepts Big Pharma lobbyist money. Even his own wife admits he's not good on healthcare, and he's accidentally let slip the reality that you'll be paying for a bad deal. Erskine Bowles, famous for leading the commission to raise the retirement age, cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and disabled veterans benefits, and lower taxes on billionaires, is bundling for him, meaning he's collecting dark money from secret donors that are not disclosed. Personally fought to make cancer medication unaffordable for patients in developing nations. Was the only senator to vote against expanding a child care tax credit. Race. Led the fight against desegregating schools and continued it years after it had been proven a success and was even being defended by Republicans. His bill to stop busing was so unpopular even a senator who was a leader in the KKK opposed it. As part of his crusade against desegregating schools, he was the only member of the Senate Judiciary Committee to block 2 black appointees to the Department of Justice.
Let's see that. Wow. What's it? Yeah, that's weird. Wow, that's weird. You think that? I thought a KKK leader would be a fit for this, but what's up with that? Anyway.
Chooses to work with and passionately support many of the worst racists and segregationists in America. Expanded 1/30th. Continues to lie about marching in the civil rights movement and participating in sit-ins at least 31 times, despite admitting this was not true in 1987. Also seems to lie about attending an HBCU. Expanded 1/30th. Has a very, very long history of racist comments. Generally has no understanding of racism in America. Immigration. Voted to expand deportations and indefinite detention multiple times and opposed amnesty for immigrants. As VP, his administration deported more people than any other in American history, deporting people at a higher rate than Trump's administration, even according to ICE themselves. As VP, his administration built the inhumane concentration camps in which children separated from their families are still illegally caged, beginning the practice which Trump has now continued. As VP, his administration's inhumane treatment of detained migrants led to the ongoing lawsuit claiming that ICE is violating the Flores Agreement by not providing basics like toothpaste and soap. As VP, he expanded the anti-immigrant system Trump now uses by 3,600%. As VP, he expanded the anti-immigrant system Trump now uses by 3,600%. Voted to build border walls and supported sending military to the border long before Trump. Voted to ban immigrants with HIV, locking up Haitian refugees in Guantanamo Bay. Spearheaded the Alliance for Prosperity, which increased deportations, border militarization, privatization, and oil pipelines for American exploitation while worsening the refugee crisis. Supports the Republican talking point of requiring immigrants to learn English. He still refuses to answer for his record and has told immigration activists to vote for Trump and called the police on others for passing out flyers. Foreign policy. Voted for the disastrous Iraq War, told Bush he deserved the Nobel Prize for the invasion, then helped to continue escalating it years later, but now lies about this multiple times while still also saying he'd do it again. His foreign policy advisor helped Bush orchestrate the Iraq War before joining a lobbying firm for the military-industrial complex. Lied about getting shot down in Iraq and experiences in Afghanistan. Refuses to even acknowledge that Trump's illegal and unjust assassination of an Iranian general was an assassination. Supports Israel's right-wing regime and apartheid in Palestine purely to protect U.S. interests. A self-described Zionist, he blames Palestinians for multiple US-backed Israeli massacres, including an attack that killed 9 peace activists. Calls BDS anti-Semitic and has a 100% rating from AIPAC. Lies about protesting the Vietnam War. Added 1/30th. Supports the Trump-backed right-wing opposition leader attempting a coup in Venezuela, despite not knowing where the nation is. Tacitly supports Bolivia's violent fascist insurrection that's backed by Trump, despite not knowing where the nation is. Architected Plan Colombia, internationalizing the war on drugs resulting in mass death, displacement, and destruction of food crops, while opening the country to U.S. business interests. Personally tried to prevent Ecuador from providing asylum for Edward Snowden. Recklessly threatens nuclear war with North Korea and seems to think Kim Jong-un is from South Korea and that they've met when they haven't. Says the CIA torture report is not a black stain on this country, but a badge of honor. Voted.
Statement from the president on the White House just released a statement from the White House just released a statement from the president on the torture report condemning our tactics. But is that enough? Should there be consequences to the CIA or other organizations for what that report is saying?
In regard to who should be prosecuted, I've been deeply involved in reviewing all of the matters that have been made public by the committee. This is, for you all know, the intelligence committees are the ones that signed this report. It's a large report, significant report. And I've gone through it over the period of time and been interlocutor with with Chairman Feinstein and Saxby-Chambliss on this. And it is for the Justice Department to determine whether or not there is any cause of action to be taken against any single individual. But in a sense, to me, that's the least important piece. The most important piece is we're big enough, strong enough, and consistent enough to say, we made a mistake. We made a mistake. We're exposing it. That will strengthen us worldwide. It will not weaken us. And that it will make it more difficult for the mistake to ever be able to be made again. That's the importance of the report, in my view.
Is it a black stain on the United States?
No, I think it's a badge of honor. Every country has engaged in activities somewhere along the line that it has not been proud of. But think about it. Name me another country that's prepared to stand up and say, this was a mistake. We should not have done what we've done, and we will not do it again. I think that's it. And by the way,
voted to authorize invasion of the Netherlands if an American is tried for war crimes by the International Court of Justice in The Hague, refusal to participate in UN peacekeeping unless the U.S. obtains immunity, and withdrawal of aid to countries that ratify ICC treaty. Is so hawkish he even stood alone in calling for the U.S. to invade Sudan in 2007. Orchestrated the 1999 Serbian bombings that helped the nation's dictator overthrow the local pro-democracy movement.
Disgusting. Apparently he's a very, very bad choice for foreign policy. Hold on a minute. Should I dig her? Or should I wait for him to go? Night, Ma. Okay, now where were we? Oh yes. Sorry, saying goodnight to my mother.
Criminal Justice and Drugs. Wrote the racist crime bill that intentionally led to record-breaking mass incarceration, championing it as his signature achievement and positioning himself to the right of even Reagan and Bush. Supports denying incarcerated people the right to vote, defending bans that were enacted specifically to keep black Americans from voting. Led the disastrous war on drugs, yet 2 of his children escaped consequences for drug use. Somehow still opposes cannabis legalization, while simultaneously trying to destroy the growing industry by handing it over to the big pharma. Pushed to expand death penalty, even to those on drug charges. Worsened the opioid epidemic and made it harder to treat. Wants to make up reasons to jail anyone associated with a rave and literally bulldoze them down, while his rave legislation lets kids die from preventable drug overdoses. One of his big fundraisers is a Republican donor who is a major player in the for-profit prison industry. LGBTQ and women's issues. Long history of creepily/patronizingly groping/sniffing/kissing/grabbing and intimidating/condescending to women and young girls just so many times, continuing even after his non-apology. Opposed equal rights for the LGBTQ and community even very recently, only eventually coming around just 8 short years ago, and is still awkward at best on the issue. Opposed Roe v. Wade, voted to allow states to overturn it like they are doing now, does not view abortion as a choice and a right, and repeatedly opposes federal funding for it even during this election.
News. Biden campaign confirms he supports Hyde Amendment. By Morgan Stalder. June 5, 19, 8:33 a.m. EDT 1211. 67,869.
Joe Biden's campaign confirmed that he still supports a controversial ban prohibiting the use of federal funds for certain abortion services. Campaign aides told NBC News that the 2020 presidential hopeful still supports the Hyde Amendment, which has prevented government health programs like Medicaid from paying for abortions except in cases of rape, incest, and to save the life of the woman. Biden's campaign did say that the former vice president would be open to repealing the amendment if abortion access currently protected under Roe v. Wade was threatened. The support appears to differ from what Biden told an American Civil Liberties Union volunteer when asked about the Hyde Amendment last month, when he said, quote, "It can't stay."
Trump shares then deletes tweet praising Chiefs for representing great state of Kansas. Former Vice President Joe Biden's presidential campaign confirmed that he still supports a controversial ban prohibiting the use of federal funds for certain abortion services. Campaign aides told The Hill that the 2020 presidential hopeful still supports the Hyde Amendment, which has prevented government health programs like Medicaid from paying for abortions except in cases of rape, incest, or to save the life of the woman. Biden's campaign did say that Biden would be open to repealing the amendment if abortion access currently protected under Roe v. Wade was threatened. NBC News first reported Biden's stance on the measure. The support appears to differ from what Biden told an American Civil Liberties Union volunteer when asked about the Hyde Amendment last month. "It can't stay," he said. The Biden campaign told The Hill that Biden misheard the ACLU volunteer and thought she was referring to the Mexico City rule, which prevents federal aid money from going to organizations overseas that perform abortions. Biden has never changed his support for Hyde Amendment, the campaign clarified. He appears to be the only Democratic White House hopeful who has come out in support of the 43-year-old ban, NBC News noted. Senator Cory Booker, DN.J., Senator Elizabeth Warren, D. Mass., and former Representative Beto O'Rourke, D. Texas, have released proposals to protect abortion access that call for an end to the Hyde Amendment. Warren has also joined with the other Senate women running for the Democratic nomination, Senators Kamala Harris, California, Kirsten Gillibrand, NY, and Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota, to co-sponsor legislation overturning the ban. Planned Parenthood slammed Biden's continued support for the Hyde Amendment in a statement to NBC. The unfair Hyde Amendment makes it so that those who have the least end up having to pay the most to access abortion, and those who are service members or live on reservations are often left with no coverage for abortion care, Kelly Robinson, Planned Parenthood Action Fund's executive director, said. "We encourage any candidate who doesn't recognize Hyde's impact to speak to the women it hurts most, particularly on women of color and women with low incomes, to learn more about the harmful impacts of this discriminatory policy," Robinson said. Biden told supporters in New Hampshire as recently as Tuesday that he supports the 1973 Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion nationwide. He vowed to push for legislation keeping the procedure legal should the High Court overturn the decision while he was president. Jamal Brown, Biden's national press secretary, told The Hill that Biden firmly believes that Roe v. Wade is the law of the land. Throughout his career, Joe Biden has fought vigorously to protect a woman's right to choose and against measures criminalizing abortion, Brown said in a statement. As chairman of the Judiciary Committee, he blocked the Supreme Court nomination of Judge Robert Bork, and he opposed anti-choice Justices Roberts, Alito, and Thomas. Vice President Biden believes we must protect the progress we've made and has called on codifying the decision in Roe to ensure this choice remains between a woman and her doctor, Brown added. Biden is a devout Roman Catholic who opposes abortion. The former Delaware senator has spoken publicly about his internal debate over the issue, and his voting record while in Congress reflects his past opposition to most federal funding for abortion services, according to an NBC analysis. Biden voted against a 1977 compromise that allowed Medicaid to fund abortions with exceptions for rape, incest, or medical safety of the mother. He then voted again in 1981 to remove rape and incest exceptions when they passed. The ex-lawmaker also voted several times to prohibit federal workers from using health insurance on abortion services, with the only exception being to save the life of the mother. Updated 10:05 a.m. Tags Kirsten Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Joe Biden, Hyde Amendment, Abortion access. Load comments, 1211. Sponsored content.
Took a $200,000 bribe to help an anti-abortion Republican beat a Democrat to Congress. Worked to undermine the ACA's coverage of birth control. Horribly mistreated Anita Hill during the Clarence Thomas sexual harassment hearing. Economy, class, and wealth. Defends billionaires hoarding wealth and promises that nothing will fundamentally change. Sided with banks to overturn Glass-Steagall and deregulate, leading to the financial crisis. Led the disastrous bankruptcy bill in opposition to predatory lending, resulting in increased debt, which he continues to defend. Voted to slash the top income tax rate and cripple the estate tax, resulting in $83 billion lost annually. Has dishonestly tried to take credit for the formation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, despite actually helping strip state consumer protection. Regularly demonizes the poor with racist dog whistles. Lies about having been poor for sympathy, though he made over 4 times the median income at the time in question. His tax returns revealed an $11 million increase in income in his first year out of office alone, an amount that is higher than the entire net worth of every other candidate polling in double digits. Climate crisis. He still supports fracking, oil and gas exportation, and the building of new fossil fuel infrastructure. Opposes meaningful action on the climate crisis like the Green New Deal and lies about it, instead pursuing the middle ground while his campaign attacks publications for accurately reporting this. Plagiarized fossil fuel.
Let's see. I expect as President Joe Biden would enact a bold policy to tackle climate change in a meaningful way. And lasting way. Reuters got it wrong. Any suggestions that it wouldn't is in direct contradiction to his long record of understanding climate change as an existential threat.
Plagiarized fossil fuel group's language in his woefully inadequate climate crisis plan. One of his climate advisors made $1 million from one natural gas company alone, while many others have ties to the industry as well. Broke his own pledge to not accept fossil fuel money by attending a fundraiser hosted by his former advisor and current Oil Corporation co-founder/owner Andrew Goldman, and lied about it twice. He is often rude and condescending towards young climate activists and those asking about the issue, even making uncomfortable physical contact with one woman. His campaign shot down the proposed climate debate and skipped MSNBC's Climate Forum. Instead of supporting job placement for affected fossil fuel workers during the transition to a green economy like the Green New Deal does, he dismissively tells coal miners to just learn to code instead. Campaigning and electability. A Biden matchup against Trump would truly be a disaster, as all of Biden's weaknesses play directly into Trump's strengths. He has questionable electability based on receiving less than 0.22% in 3 previous Democratic primary elections. Dropped out of the 1988 race in disgrace after it was revealed he had lied about his academic record and plagiarized law school papers and campaign speeches, including one in which he lied about having coal miner roots. Has an infamous propensity for awkward gaffes and freakouts, including many in this election cycle alone, to the point where he is literally unable to campaign. He is currently skipping major parts.
Let's see.
Go to Joe, if you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. Thank you very much. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. Thank you very much. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. Thank you very much.
He is currently skipping major party events, hiding from the press, and holding only between a quarter and half as many public events as other candidates. Has next to no voter enthusiasm, with a recent poll showing just 8% of respondents feel Biden is exciting. Has less college-age support than Trump and is consistently one of the lowest with those under 35, which is the country's largest voting bloc. Obama won young voters and they carried him to a general election victory, whereas Clinton's failure with youth saw her lose to Trump. Added 1/30. Has a history of insulting voters many times. His anti-progressive campaign surrogate Ed Rendell is a sexist, pro-fracking, pro-AIPAC Fox News supporter who approved bombing a black neighborhood in Philadelphia, killing 5 children and 6 adults. Accepted the endorsement of Alan Dershowitz, the millionaire on Trump's legal defense team who is accused of taking part in Jeffrey Epstein's sex ring, after Biden's son ensured a similar billionaire pedophile avoided prison after raping his own toddler. Broke his own pledge to take over 2x more money than Trump from lobbyists and special interests, including at least 44 billionaires. Has the same general donor base as Trump, and even Trump himself has donated to him. He is still openly courting Republican billionaires for donations, including John Katzimatidis, who's compared taxing the wealthy to Nazi persecution of Jews. Despite his supposed front-runner status, he is a distant fifth in both small-dollar donations and individual donors. Flip-flopped on his initial opposition to using super PACs and established one with military-industrial complex and private healthcare lobbyists, even after admitting, you shouldn't accept any money from a super PAC, because people can't possibly trust you, just 1 year prior. His campaign is abusing his non-unionized staff and forcing them to work in unsafe conditions. Seems to have found a loophole to avoid paying his interns. More voters say they will never vote for him under any circumstances than any other candidate. Used Charlottesville as a prop in his campaign video despite never even visiting once. Campaigns on America being able to achieve anything while also telling us we can't even achieve common basics like universal health care coverage. Unconvincingly co-opted Bernie's slogan, and a Biden PAC plagiarized Kamala Harris's slogan for its name. There are questions about his health, as he's suffered a burst blood vessel in his eye, loose dentures, shocking mental lapses, and even undergone brain surgery and experienced multiple brain aneurysms. Corruption. Won't admit his son's shady dealings in Ukraine were wrong, lies about being warned about it, and freaks out and attacks voters when they ask him about this topic, showing no ability to handle the issue in a general election against Trump.
Let's see.
How much it is? I got a question how much it is. We all know Trump, as they're messing around in Ukraine over there, holding their foreign aid for them to come up saying for investigation. You know, go back. But you, on the other hand, said get a job and work for a gas company, but you had no experience with gas or nothing. In order to get access to the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he is.
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has heard that. No. You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no, let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape run, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take the 19 steps. Number two. No one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion. And no one has ever said it. Not one.
I didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
That's what I hear on MSNBC.
You don't hear that on MSNBC. You did not hear that at all. What you heard, look, okay, I'm not going to get in an argument with you, man. Well, yeah, you do, but look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
It looks like you don't have any more backbone than Trump.
Any other questions?
Okay, now okay, that was really not right now. Back to this.
This will.
Whoops.
Says he will defy a subpoena to testify in Trump's trial, which presents guilty optics at best. Voted to deregulate the credit card industry while a credit card company hired his son and was his top donor from 1989 to 2000. Appears to have gotten his brother an EVP role at a construction firm the Obama/Biden administration then awarded a $1.5 billion contract to build houses in Iraq, despite his brother having no prior residential construction experience. Helped his brother secure funding and contracts to build upper-class developments in Jamaica and Costa Rican rainforests, as well as sketchy lobbyist ties to land in the Virgin Islands. Granted his son-in-law's health consulting company DC and White House access. His son is somehow conveniently getting away with not paying child support that is owed. Has a long history of generally Trump-esque nepotism that he refuses to address. Very openly partakes in general corruption while lying and condescending about this. Education.
Found it.
We are going to fundamentally change the nature of the planet. Not a joke. Number two. First thing I will do. I do not take money from a corporation. You're listening to Bernie too much, man. It's not true. Folks, number one, what we have to do is the first thing I do as president, we are going to fund.
I gotta write a tweet about this. Sometimes I wonder if Obama should have picked someone else as it to be his VP. Almost done. That's the last one.
Education has not proposed any plans to make public college tuition free or to abolish student debt. Specifically fought to make student loan debt more difficult to live with before dismissing the plight of millennials who are now the most indebted generation ever and laughing about it. Accepts student lender lobbyist money. Lied about his own student debt multiple times, his own scholarship and his own academic achievements. Plagiarized law school papers, the discovery of which forced him to drop out of the 1988 race in disgrace. Labor, trade, and business. Voted against enhancing labor protection enforcements. Voted for NAFTA, supports TPP, is generally to the right of Trump on trade, and argued against the prediction that China would become an economic competitor. Works with union busters, voted to cut union pensions, continues to snub unions, and is generally bad for workers. Attorneys from union-busting law firms are bundling at minimum tens of thousands of secretly sourced dollars for his campaign. Added 131st. Consistently sides with special interests and corporations against antitrust regulation and voted for the first antitrust exemption since 1922. Other. Supported the NRA in passing massive anti-gun control legislation, and repeatedly blames video games for mass shootings. Threatened to shoot Obama if he tried to take his multiple guns. Driving force behind the Patriot Act, supports warrantless wiretaps / mass.
Oh! Oh! Did you see that? Let's see that.
Barack Obama ain't taking my shotguns, so don't buy that malarkey. Don't buy that malarkey. They're gonna start peddling that to you. I got two. If he tries to fool with my Beretta, he's got a problem. I like that little over and under. You know, I'm not bad with it. So give me a break. I guarantee you.
Why did? Sometimes I win. Why did? Yeah. Man, that's a shocker right there. That's something I'm gonna. Last one's at the bottom.
Driving force behind the Patriot Act, supports warrantless wiretaps / mass surveillance while his son partially owns the Chinese government's Islamophobic mass surveillance system. Voted against abolishing the Electoral College that went on to undemocratically elect Bush and Trump. Voted for the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that deregulated the media industry, helping just 6 monopolies, including Fox, gain control over 90% of all U.S. media. His Senate Chief of Staff is now running Fox News' lobbying operation. Opposes net neutrality. Has no plan to reform the court system or counter its Republican takeover, and is fine with Kavanaugh remaining on the Supreme Court for life. Has proposed renominating the failed Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court, a nearly 70-year-old moderate who has opposed human rights for Guantanamo detainees and voting rights. Is considering picking a Republican to be his VP. Has a long history of supporting, praising, and awarding so many of the worst Republicans like George and Jeb Bush, Cheney, and Pence.
If you watched yesterday's video, you would have seen this article.
Republicans like Strom Thurmond and Meghan and the McCain family and have endorsed him because of his conservative views. Ideologically, he admits, a lot of us sit around thinking up ways to vote conservative just so we don't come out with a liberal rating. I'm really quite conservative. He wants people to stay Republican instead of becoming Democrats, doesn't want the Republican Party to lose power, and doesn't want the Democratic Party to become too powerful.
Why is he a Democrat?
The worst part? He's still not sorry for any of this, but wants a black man to apologize to him.
Biden, I am not sorry for anything that I have ever done.
I'm Sonic. I'm here to protect my friends.
By Brett Samuels, April 5th, 2019, 12:41 p.m. Eastern Standard EDT. I think I went over this video last time, so we'll do it again anyway.
Former Vice President Joe Biden said Friday that he's not sorry for his past actions that some women have said made them uncomfortable, but that he's sorry he didn't understand more at the time. The fact of the matter is I made it clear that if I made anyone feel uncomfortable, I feel badly about that. It was never my intention. Ever, Biden said. Asked again if he was sorry, Biden did not apologize for his actions. I'm sorry I didn't understand more, Biden told reporters following a speech to a gathering of union workers. I'm not sorry for any of my intentions. I'm not sorry for anything that I have ever done. I have never been disrespectful intentionally to a man or a woman. So that's not the reputation I've had since I was in high school, for God's sake. Biden, who acknowledged he is merely waiting for the right moment to jump into the 2020 presidential race, has been at the center of controversy in recent days after several women said he touched them inappropriately or behaved in ways that made them uncomfortable. Biden admitted that the accusations of unwanted touching will have to change somewhat how I campaign. He did not elaborate, other than to explain that he's careful when taking selfies with supporters. Friday marked Biden's most extensive comments addressing the issue and his first public appearance since the women came forward. During his speech to the Electrical Workers Union, the former vice president referenced the controversy with a pair of jokes, telling attendees that he had received permission to hug the union leader and put his arm around a child he invited up on stage. Biden later appeared to address the jokes, telling reporters that he did not intend to make light of anyone's discomfort. It was not my intent to make light of anyone's discomfort, Biden said after the speech. I realize my responsibility is to not invade the space of anyone who is uncomfortable. Biden had previously addressed the women's accounts in a video shared Wednesday on social media. He did not apologize in that recorded statement, either, but acknowledged times have changed and that he would adjust his behavior. While many of Biden's former colleagues in the Senate and others have attested to his character, President Trump and some Republicans have seized on the allegations. Trump, who has himself been accused of sexual misconduct by several women, has taunted Biden multiple times in recent days, including when he shared a doctored version of the former vice president's video remarks. The president said Friday morning that he does not view Biden as a threat to his re-election chances. I don't see him as a threat, Trump told reporters. I think he's only a threat to himself. Sponsored content. Why are more fortunate? Updated 1:29 p.m. Tags Donald Trump Joe Biden allegations.
The government wants to dissect you and arrest me. We gotta lay low. Let me show you how it's done.
Time to go. I'm coming for you. That was an illegal left, by the way.
Here comes the boom. How are you not dead? I have no idea.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'm okay.
Rated PG.
I'm sorry I didn't understand more. I'm not sorry for any of my intentions. I'm not sorry for anything that I have ever done. I've never been disrespectful intentionally to a man or a woman. That's not the reputation I had since I was in high school, for God's sake. Mr. Vice President.
What's the difference?
Okay. I'll see about that other one.
Received from your fellow Democrats on the segregationist columnist?
The answer is yes. Here's the deal. What I was talking about, I could not have disagreed with Jim Eastland more. And he was a segregationist. I ran for the United States Senate because I disagreed with the views of the segregationists, and many of them in the Senate at the time. As I led the Judiciary Committee, I was able to pass, what I was talking about was the Voting Rights Act. I was able to pass the Voting Rights Act when I was a young senator, when he was still the chairman. We voted against him and beat him in the Voting Rights Act. Secondly, when I was chairman of the committee, I extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years, not 5 years. In addition to that, I made it very clear by the last time as I was on that committee, I was chairman of Foreign Relations, but I was a lead Democrat. We extended another 25 years, and we got 98 out of 98 votes for it. The point I'm making is you don't have to agree. You don't have to like the people in terms of their views, but you just simply make the case and you beat them. You beat them without changing the system.
How does it feel that your Democratic rivals are implicitly saying that you have issues talking about race?
They know better.
Are you going to apologize like Cory Booker has called for?
What?
Cory Booker's called for it. He's asking you to apologize.
He knows better. There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career. Period. Period. Period.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I know I've never been involved in the civil rights. That's because I wasn't born during that time. But I know if I was, I would take part, whether there or here or at home. I mean, now. There we go. There we go. Now to finish. Now to call it all home.
If you liked this article, you might also be interested in 10 Reasons Why Bernie Sanders is Our Best Chance to Beat Donald Trump, A Progressive's Guide to Choosing Between Bernie and Warren, and A Guide to the 2020 Democratic Candidates You Should Not Vote For. 325. Joe Biden. Politics. Election 2020. Democrats. Democratic Party. 326 claps. Applause from you and 30 others. Written by Weston David Pagano. Following. Juventino, progressive, tall person. See responses, 4. More from Medium. Also tagged politics. The Hater's Guide to Joe Biden. Drew Magary and
Let's see this one real quick before we close. Why not?
Column. The Hater's Guide to Joe Biden. The man is a living rerun, and we've seen this show way too many times already. Drew Magary. Follow. February 2nd, 6 minutes read. Photo source, Aldrago /Getty Images. Some people are supporters of Joe Biden. But many, many more people are not supporters of Joe Biden. This 2020 Gen Magazine Haters Guide, the final in an already famed and illustrious series, is for those in the latter group. Your candidate. The okayest boomer. His resume. Spent 8 years as vice president and would be a shoo-in for this nomination if his old boss, Barack Obama, had endorsed him already. Obama has not. Do you know how early Bill Clinton endorsed Al Gore back when Gore was running to succeed him? December 1999, well over a month before the 2000 Iowa caucuses. Gore would end up winning those caucuses in a predictable landslide, along with every single primary afterward. Biden, by contrast, will be lucky to beat out the fucking mayor of South Bend when the Iowa returns come in. Diamond Joe is on his own for this campaign. It's been like watching someone throw a baby into a swimming pool. There are a lot of reasons why Biden is sleepwalking his way toward defeat, but his record itself is more than damning enough on its own. You know the basics. The 1992 crime bill that Biden promised would do everything but hang people for jaywalking. Serving as Senate Judiciary Chair during Clarence Thomas's confirmation hearings and leaving Anita Hill to twist and watching Thomas get confirmed and move on to serve as Antonin Scalia's rubber stamp even after Scalia dropped dead. Offering a feeble apology to Hill years and years after her life was ransacked that Hill didn't accept and wouldn't even categorize as an apology. Voting for the Iraq War. Fighting against busing to help desegregate schools in the 1970s, and even courting segregationists to bolster his cause. You probably know about all of that. But it gets worse. He lied about marching in the civil rights movement. He aborted a 1988 presidential run after he got caught plagiarizing a speech, Melania style. And, of course, last year he said, without a hint of awareness or shame, I just think there is a way, and the thing that will fundamentally change things is with Donald Trump out of the White House. Not a joke. You will see an epiphany occur among many of my Republican friends. Biden exists in a brain space where he both lies and also believes other lies in equal measure. Pretty fucking shitty. When your campaign also doubles as a haphazard apology tour, you're probably not doing well. I'm like any other Twitter liberal who accuses Republicans of saying the quiet part out loud. But Biden has a similarly nasty habit. Also, his son is the world's truest garbage son. Hunter Biden was gifted a job right out of college with MBNA, a predictably hideous banking concern operating out of the pyramid scheme of a state that is Delaware. MBNA just so happened to be one of the old man's foremost donors, but that was hardly the last time Joe Biden laid down a primrose path for his kid. Hunter is also the key target dummy of Republicans in the Ukraine scandal. Joe Biden did nothing illegal by setting Hunter up for a no-show boardroom job at a Ukrainian energy conglomerate, but anyone with a moral compass knows it's a pretty blatant display of nepotism. Does Joe Biden care about a global economic system where this kind of back-scratching to get his kid unearned dough is both legal and a moral afterthought? Of course not. He's bringing us back, baby. Finally, Hunter dated his brother's widow, then cheated on that widow with a stripper, then got that woman pregnant, and then was ordered to pay child support to that woman after being a fucking deadbeat. Hunter Biden is the biggest piece of raw steak ever laid at the foot of Fox News headquarters. Why he sucks. No one's standard of living will change, nothing would fundamentally change. That's Biden reassuring his wealthiest donors, and his donor list is very top-heavy that if elected, they won't have to worry about big government raiding their coffers. There's the nut of it. There's the truth coming out right there. I'm like any other Twitter liberal who accuses Republicans of saying the quiet part out loud. But Biden has a similarly nasty habit. His campaign has been less an inspiration than it has been a halogen strength spotlight, illuminating how the Democratic establishment is owned and controlled by moneyed interests that have no desire to substantially change much of anything. Trump is ugly to them, but tolerable. Biden's pitch is that he will be equally tolerable. Biden isn't just bringing this pitch, via Romney-style secret meetings, to Buck Leighton Farnsworth for and every other big pharma scion working his puppet strings. It's also the message he wants voters to hear. He wants a reset. He wants to bring America back. He wants to pretend the Trump years never existed, and he wants everyone else to buy into this delusion with him. If you play along with Biden here, you believe that the times that came before Trump were just hunky-dory. And that's true if you happen to be rich as shit, or if you don't really mind that Trump is president right now, or if you're a career politician like Joe Biden. If you're Joe Biden, everything will be great if you get to just keep doing all of the shit you were already doing. Hence, this man is a living rerun. If Biden wins the nomination, we'll get to relive all of Hillary Clinton's 2016 missteps all over again, complete with extended trail absences to fake donors, plus a threadbare scandal that will be effectively weaponized by Republicans whether that's fair or not. We'll also get to relive the worst failures of the Obama years, where faith in Republican cooperation was met with Mitch McConnell, the man who stole a Supreme Court seat and just diligently orchestrated an impeachment trial cover-up so fucking brazen that I want to pull my eyes out spitting in everyone's face. We'll get to relive the days when a man could smell a random woman's hair without asking. Tremendous. We'll get to relive the days when a head of state challenged voters to an IQ test. Joe Biden is a dinosaur scrambling to protect all the other dinosaurs, and it's fucking pathetic. Never has one man so fully embodied boomer both literally and as an epithet. And the worst part is that none of this concerns Joe Biden in the least. After literally being advised by his staff to avoid standing near people for fear that he'll get too handsy, he still thinks he oozes enough grandpa charm to coast through this entire process. He's even told people outright to go vote for other people. He won't stop poking everyone in the chest. His staffers are getting drunken hand jobs on planes because they don't give a shit. Joe Biden, fuck you, he doesn't even need you trademark. You'd be doing more for society voting for the fucking fixer-upper couple.
Another jab at Sanders, again not named. I'll show how.
Thread. See new tweets. Dave Weigel. At Dave Weigel. January 27th. Biden, in Cedar Falls, makes a reference to Sanders but doesn't use his name. As one of the leaders of the Medicare for All effort said, "I don't know how much it's going to cost, but we have to do it. That's not how a bill gets passed," he says. 35. 28. Another jab at Sanders, again, not named. I show how I pay for everything in my campaign. Others say they're going to spend $60 trillion. I don't think you win with that. I think it scares the living daylights out of people. Biden dissembling a bit on Medicare for All, saying that its supporters argue it's going to take at least 4 years to get it passed. Warren has spelled out what she'd do immediately to expand coverage in January 2021, and in the bill itself, benefits start immediately. 9. Ironically, it was the ACA that became endangered because, in order to make the math work / less scary, some of the most popular benefits were phased in years later. 8. 10. Here's first kind of skeptical cue for Biden. There's not many young people here, so how do you win them? An old guy like me's pretty good, you know what? Biden says, before praising young people as the least prejudiced, the best educated generation. Dave Weigel. At Dave Weigel. January 27th. I'm the only one that gets a significant portion of the young vote as well as the old vote, Biden says, before joking that it's hard to get young people to come out for something on a campus before 4 o'clock. 21. Why he'll suck as president. In my stupidest dreams, Biden is performing a rope-a-dope on everyone. He's playing the role of sensible moderate and openly daydreaming about having a Republican running mate, also that well-to-do suburbanites and elderly racists fall for him. Then, he gets into office and boom. Turns out Joe was a progressive mole this whole time. He's gonna take your guns and fund all your healthcare and install high-speed walkways from coast to coast. But again, look at the resume. If Biden beats out Bernie and Warren and Lil Biden, he'll take that as validation for all of the hackneyed, conciliatory horseshit he's already banked his campaign on. We will all be condemned to a black hole of legislative nothingness, led by a doddering old fool who thinks riding Amtrak means he's one of you. One unhateable thing. Watch Biden tear George Shultz a new asshole over Ronald Reagan's South Africa policy back in the days of apartheid.
First of all, I'm amazed Bishop Tutu was as restrained as he was. His people are being mugged, shot, imprisoned, killed, smothered. I admire his restraint, not his assertion. I suspect if you or I were in his position, if we were a black South African leader or otherwise, I found you to be a very principled man and a combative man. I doubt whether you'd be on the ramparts, I suggest. I know I would be, and I think you would be. So I think he's been pretty restrained, number one. Number two, with regard to terrorism and necklaces.
I'd have to disagree with you, Senator.
Well,
I think to say that President Reagan's statement yesterday was nauseating is not anything that I could agree with under any circumstances.
I'm referring, not whether you agree with it or not, the frustration that he must feel. I'm surprised he hadn't said more.
Of course he feels frustration. We all feel frustration.
Yeah, but his people are dying.
His
people are dying. You feel frustration, they're dying. They're being shot. Children, we're talking about necklaces.
Of
they're lining
course.
up and they're shooting children.
It's a terrible situation, and what we need to be thinking about
is what to do about it. And what disturbs me, what disturbs me, and I will try not to be disturbed, is not merely your policy.
Remember, I'm a taxpayer.
I remember you're a taxpayer.
Just because I'm Secretary of State, you can't kick me around. I'm a taxpayer.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman. I understand that. But I want to tell you something. What disturbs me more than the policy that you call a policy is the rationale for the policy. The rationale for the policy. You set out 4 principles that you adhere to, and then and I will go over them in a moment. Then you say on page 14, we must not become part of South Africa's problem. We must remain part of their solution. We must not aim to impose ourselves, our solutions, our favorites in South Africa. Damn it, we have favorites in South Africa. The favorites in South Africa are the people who are being repressed by that ugly white regime. We have favorites. Our loyalty is not to South Africa, it's to South Africans. And the South Africans are majority black, and they are being excoriated. It is not to some stupid puppet government over there. It is not to the Afrikaners regime. We have no loyalty to them. We have no loyalty to South Africa, to South Africans. And the fact of the matter is I listen to this rationale first of all. It is the leaders of South Africa and their people, black and white, who have the majority responsibility. They must rise to it. Well, they are rising to it. They're rising to it. The only thing left available to them with that repulsive, repugnant regime of Afrikaners there. And it's the only way they have. They've tried everything for the last 20 years. They begged, they borrowed, they crawled, and now they're taking up arms. The second thing, progress toward peace requires a timetable. Timetable, elimination of apartheid. What's our timetable? What are we saying to that repugnant regime? Are we saying you've got 20 days, 20 months, 20 years? We ask them to put up a timetable. What's our timetable? Where do we stand morally? Thirdly, black South Africans, the choices before black South Africans are equally clear. We call on them to avoid easy descent into violence, terrorism, and extremism. To demonstrate by their action they understand the need for compromise. Hell, they've tried to compromise for 20 years. They've tried everything in their power. And look what's happened to them. They're being crushed. And then you say, the fourth principle is that our policies and those of our allies ensure that we expand political liberties in the post-apartheid South Africa. Mr. Secretary, maybe it's because I come from the civil rights movement in this country. We sat there and we heard the same kind of arguments, the same exact arguments. We cannot impose from the North a solution on the South. They must work out their problems, black and white, together. We cannot, as a nation, expose them to the economic ravages that will come. We must consider what will happen after segregation before we eliminate segregation. My Lord. And finally,
that is not an accurate
Let me read it.
Because we don't say we have to consider what happens after the end of
apartheid
before we end it. We have said again and again and again that it's an abhorrent system, and I can be just as emotional as you can about that, and it needs to end.
You state 4 principles. I assume they're equally important. You say, fourth, our policy and those of our allies should ensure an expanded political liberties in the post-apartheid South Africa are accomplished by an expansion of economic opportunities. My God, worry about that when it comes. These people are being crushed. And we're sitting here with the same kind of rhetoric. The same thing we heard. We heard go slow. We heard we have to take care of the problem afterwards. We heard we can't impose.
You are totally misconstruing the testimony that I gave.
Read first.
Furthermore, Senator, let me say that I hate to hear a senator of the United States calling for violence.
I'm not calling for violence.
That's what you're doing.
I hate to hear
exactly what you're doing.
I hate to hear an administration and a Secretary of State refusing to act on a morally abhorrent point. I hate to hear this country. I'm ashamed that this country puts out a policy like this that says nothing. Nothing. It says continue the same. We put no timetable on. We make no specific demand. We don't set it down. I'm ashamed that's our policy. That's what I'm ashamed of. I'm ashamed of the lack of moral backbone to this policy.
Well, I resent that deeply because there is tremendous moral backbone in that policy on a bipartisan basis and has been for many, many years.
There is no bipartisan basis for this.
There is, I doubt very much if there is any real disagreement with the objectives set out there, with the steps that have to be taken if there is going to be the kind of change you want. There is no other way but to get those things to happen. Now the question is, what can we do that will get those things to happen? And I think that I outlined the course that is there and also have tried to point up to you and to the South African government the terrible situation they're creating for themselves.
Obviously, the action has caused violence, or at least has not stopped the violence. There is violence, overwhelming violence in South Africa today. If you want to avoid more, the former Prime Minister of Australia is correct. Let the South African blacks know that we stand with them four square.
We do. We have let them know.
They don't believe it, neither do I.
Well, you can believe it or not. I might say I read my testimony a different way than you did. I'm surprised that it could be read with those inflections.
Thank you, Senator Biden. Senator Mathias.
Could I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
That Joe Biden would make a good president. He also doesn't exist anymore. That Joe Biden would make a good president. He also doesn't exist anymore.
One more time.
That Joe Biden would make a good president. He also doesn't exist anymore. Jen. What matters now? A Medium publication about politics, power, and culture. Follow. 25. Joe Biden. Drew Magary. Election 2020. Politics. Democratic. Joe Biden. Drew Magary. Election 2020. Politics. Democratic primary. 25 claps. Written by Drew Magary. Follow. Columnist at Jen previously, Deadspin, GQ. Jen. Follow. What matters now? A Medium publication about politics, power, and culture. Write the first response. More from Medium.
So what do you think? Do you think it's convinced you enough that Joe Biden doesn't deserve a spot? Doesn't deserve a, doesn't deserve a spot on the doesn't deserve a spot, doesn't deserve to be president. I hope so. I hope so. Because one thing's for sure. Hold on. If I update this real quick. There we go. Now, I hope it's convinced. I hope this has convinced you, and I hope this convinced you that Joe Biden does not deserve to be president. And tomorrow's the Iowa caucuses. So if you're watching this video, share this with as many people as you can. Especially in Iowa, first off. Then the rest of the United States. Joe Biden, get the message. Joe Biden can't become president. Period. Alright? Well, thanks for watching this. Now tomorrow, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a comment down below for this video. And tomorrow is the Iowa caucuses, and I'll be doing a live video covering that. And also, if you can't help this live video get 100 plus views, and also help my channel get 1,000 subscribers. If you do one of them, I should do them both. I would really appreciate it. But until then, this is Jared Bartos saying, see you tomorrow.